What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I wanna talk about used equipment. The reason I wanna talk about used equipment is because I get a lot of students that come through our training classes that bought that eBay special, only to show up and it's a 1998, who knows what engine, hasn't run in 20 years, and they think it's gonna work great. The reality is that there's a lot of different equipment out there, some super great, some super not as great, and it's important that you know a few things before you go buying some used gear off of the marketplace. There are three main pieces of equipment you will need in order to fly a paramotor. Number one is the actual paramotor itself. Number two is the actual paraglider or the fabric that flies above your head. And number three is the reserve parachute. I want to talk about all of these in more length, so let's get started by talking about the paramotor first. When purchasing a used paramotor, it's important that you're not purchasing a frame or engine that is no longer in business. There are a lot of manufacturers that are no longer around. Well, as you start looking through the used marketplace, you're going to see these paramotors come up for good deals. The problem with these paramotors is that you're not going to be able to find parts or people who can help you with them. If you have a paramotor that has a simple part broken that you're not able to find a piece for or a replacement for, that essentially renders that paramotor unusable unless you're able to fabricate a part. So when you're looking, please be a little aware of which cage, which frame, and which engine you're looking for. A couple other things you want to keep in mind is making sure you're not buying a paramotor with an older design to the cage and frame. Modern paramotors have a lot more technology built into them than meets the eye. The way that the new paramotors fly compared to paramotors that were designed and built 10-15 years ago can be a night and day difference. Modern torque steer compensation, weight shift authority, and ground comfort have come a long ways in the last decade. Flying or buying something from 10 years ago is going to be a totally different experience than flying and buying something in today's standard. Modern paramotors come with what's called swing arms, where the arms that you attach the wing to move up and down independently. This allows the wing to be manipulated by just weight shift, where you move your body to one side and the other side, allowing you to maneuver that wing without having to apply any brake. Another modern technology built into those swing arms is that as you are going through turbulence, that wing is going to dip down into those bumps or up, and those swing arms are going to move independently with it, allowing the wing to kind of dance through the turbulence. Having experienced the swing arms helping the wing go through turbulence is a feeling that is unlike anything else. So it's important that you're not flying something with a fixed hook in point or really high fabric hook in points. Those are two things that were commonly used a decade ago, 2 decades ago, but no longer used in today's marketplace. Another thing that's super important that you're paying attention to is how heavy the paramotor is and what materials the paramotors are made out of. Modern paramotors, for the most part, are made out of either titanium, which is the most popular, or aluminum. Most paramotors are made out of titanium because titanium is lightweight, strong, and can be bent back without sacrificing the strength of the piece. Meaning if you fall over and bend the cage slightly, you can simply bend the titanium back, whereas something like stainless steel or like aluminum, you cannot bend back without jeopardizing the strength of the actual material. Paying attention to the weight is equally important. Modern paramotors hang out somewhere between 55 and 60 pounds with a standard Moster 185. Older paramotors of about a decade ago, 2 decades ago, can range anywhere from 60 pounds to 70, sometimes even up to 80 pounds just for the paramotor before you put fuel, before you put any safety devices like flotation or a reserve parachute. So yes, modern paramotors have come down a lot in weight, and not only have they come down in weight, but the weight distribution on your back while you're on the ground is night and day difference. Not saying you can't fly an older paramotor or that they don't work, but the experience you're going to have in flying paramotors is going to be different if you're flying that versus flying something like a new modern frame. Okay, now let's talk about wings. There are a handful of things you need to know before you buy your first glider. The first thing that I want to talk about is what the wing is designed and made to do. There are two sports that are nearly identical but very different. That is paragliding and there's paramotoring. Although the two sports are very similar, the difference between a wing designed to go paragliding and a wing designed to go paramotoring is night and day. A paragliding wing is designed to be launched from the side of a mountain, oftentimes with some wind. It is made to maximize glide ratio, which is essentially how far forward you go for how far down you go, and it is designed to soak up and ride natural lift like wind up a mountain called ridge lift, or thermals, which is pockets of hot rising air. A paramotor wing is designed to be pushed by a paramotor launched in little to no wind from flat and level surfaces. This means that it's made to come up and inflate and get above your head in no wind much more easily. It's made to be pushed through the sky with a paramotor behind you, and it is made to be efficient, fast, and agile under a paramotor. Very subtle difference. But if you take a paragliding wing and you try to fly it with a paramotor, not only are you going to find that its launching characteristics are difficult, but its in-flight characteristics are not optimized for what you'd like. If you take a paramotor glider to the side of a mountain and try and launch it off, you will find that you are very inefficient in gliding and riding lift compared to a paragliding wing. What I'm getting at is that if you are looking on the marketplace for a used paramotor wing or a used wing to use for paramotoring, it is important that you do a little bit of research into the glider to make sure it's actually made for paramotoring. The next thing I want to talk about is wing size. There is a bajillion different sizes ranging from 5.9 meters to as large as 42 or even bigger. Glider manufacturers make it very easy for us pilots to figure out which size is appropriate for us. There is this thing called a weight range, which is essentially a range of weight in which the glider is designed to be flown at. That is something that is easy for us paramotor pilots to figure out which size is appropriate. The first thing we must do is figure out our all-up weight. Figuring out your all-up weight is easy. You need to add together every single thing that's going to be flying through the sky. Your glider, your paramotor, your fuel, your reserve, and you plus anything extra you bring. You need to add everything together, combine it to one big number, convert it to kilograms, and that number is your all-up weight. You will then use that number to help you figure out which glider size is going to be appropriate for you. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to wings is the wear and tear and if it's still flight worthy. One of the things that we often overlook is that everything experiences wear and tear and slowly deteriorates over time, including fabric. If you're looking at an older glider that was made in 2010, 2005, 2015, you need to keep in mind that it's been probably sitting on a shelf and that fabric is slowly deteriorating over time. There are ways of testing if a glider is still flight worthy. You send it in for what's called an inspection. There's a variety of companies across the country which do this, where they essentially test the strength of the fabric itself. They test the lines. They actually go to strength test and break a line to see if the line has lost any of its strength. They check the length of the lines to see if the glider has come out of trim. Having a glider inspected before you fly it, if it is an older, used glider, is extremely important. If you have no intentions of flying the glider, now you may not consider getting it inspected, but if you plan to fly the glider, it is super important that you do send it in for an inspection to make sure the glider is flight worthy, to make sure the glider is not approaching the end of its lifespan, to make sure the glider is not unsafe to be in the sky. All right. Let's talk about reserves. There are two main things you need to know about reserve parachutes. Number one is making sure you get the right size. And number two is making sure you get it repacked when you buy it, unless it's a brand new reserve. Let's start by talking about the correct size. If you purchase a reserve that is too small for you, you're gonna come down a little too hard, a little more aggressively than you'd want to, and it could lead to a really unpleasant landing, aka you come down faster than you really want to be coming down. If you get a reserve that is too big for you, you're going to have a hard time, or it's going to take longer to deploy. A smaller reserve is going to deploy more quickly than a larger reserve is. A larger reserve is going to set you down more easily, softly, than a smaller reserve will. So where is the sweet spot? I find the sweet spot is somewhere where you are under the max loading by about 10 kg. Now let's talk about repacking. A reserve, as it sits and the seals stay compressed and it's stuck in that bag, it's gonna get, you could say, sticky, where it's going to struggle to deploy as quickly as it should. So having it repacked every year is a really good habit. The other thing is, if you're purchasing a used reserve, absolutely have it repacked before you install it. The last thing you want is to throw it and it doesn't work as it should. One thing I will say about reserves is you absolutely should have a reserve. It's one of those little things that, yeah, you don't have to purchase, you don't need it to actually fly the paramotor, but man, if you ever are in a situation in which it could have and would have saved you, there's no worse feeling than not having had it. They cost about $1,000 brand new, maybe $500 used. That is cheap insurance. It is the oh crap button. Nothing else is working. I need to be saved. You pull it, it deploys, it works, it saves your bacon. It's one of those things that you should not ever fly without. All right, guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two about looking for used paramotor equipment on the marketplace. A lot of these same concepts apply for new paramotor equipment as well, but we will make a separate video discussing our new paramotor tips and tricks as well. Thank you all for watching. If you are interested in equipment or training, visit our website, backcountryppg.com, or reach out to me directly. We have a slew of new and used equipment, as well as beginner training and advanced training. Contact us at 801-599-1684, email us at info@backcountryppg.com, or visit backcountryppg.com for more information. Thank you for watching. My name is Trevor Steele, and I will see you next time.